Hi guys, so Riley's sleeping now. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to start back at the beginning of Chapter 7. Chapter 7. 60 minutes later, Clive's Diner, Cedar, Washington. Jess and the twins and Mr. Rowan walked through the front door of Clive's. Mom took one look at them and nearly dropped the coconut cake she was carrying. Jess knew they must look bad, streaked with dirt and covered with scratches from their run down the mountain. "What on earth?" Mom cried, putting the cake on the counter and hurrying over to them. Mom listened with wide eyes as they told her about the quake. She wrapped her arms around Jess and hugged her tight. Jess opened her mouth ready to tell her about Dad's camera, but then Mr. Rowan announced the big news. "We heard that Saint Helens might erupt." Mom stared at him in shock. "That's ridiculous," she said. "Who would say such a thing?" A voice from the end of the counter called out, "I would." Mom had been so busy fussing over Jess and the twins that she hadn't noticed Dr. Morales, who walked in behind them. Mr. Rowan had invited him to join everyone at Clive's, and he'd followed them down the highway in his car. That beat-up Toyota they'd spotted in the parking lot. Turned out that living through an earthquake made people fast friends. "Tim here is a volcano expert," Mr. Rowan said. "He works at a lab in Seattle." Mom looked Dr. Morales up and down with surprise. "You're a scientist?" With his overgrown curls and faded jeans, Dr. Morales looked more like a singer in a rock band than a person who worked in a laboratory. "I'm not wearing my scientist uniform today," Dr. Morales laughed. "But yes, I've been studying St. Helens for the past 8 years. Mom sent Jess and the twins to get cleaned up. When they returned, they found Mom and the men sitting in a booth. There were mugs of hot chocolate waiting for Jess and the boys. There were no other customers in the diner, so Mom was free to sit with them. "But I didn't think St. Helens could erupt," Mom said. "I didn't either," Mr. Rowan said. "I figured it was the kind of volcano that's dead, or whatever that word is." "You mean extinct?" Dr. Morales said. "But no, St. Helens is not extinct. It's just been dormant, which means it's been quiet." "But it's always been so peaceful," Mom said. It has been perfectly quiet for 123 years, Dr. Morales said. "The last time it erupted was in 1857, but St. Helens is the most active volcano in the West. It has erupted dozens of times over the past few thousand years. There have been massive explosions, lava flows, avalanches, and mudslides. One eruption about 500 years ago buried much of the valley under about 200 feet of rock and ash and mud." "What about Cedar?" Mom asked. "Cedar is up on a ridge, and I don't think any of the eruptions have reached this far. It's a safe place." "Good," Mom said with a nervous smile. "I was about to start packing up." "Amazing that nobody around here knows about all of this," Mr. Rowan said, shaking his head. "Actually, people did know," Mr. Morales said. "Native Americans had been living here in the Cascades for about 7,000 years before the American settlers arrived. They knew St. Helens was dangerous and stayed away from it. They wouldn't even fish from the lakes on the mountain. The Cowlitz tribe called this mountain Lawatala. It means mountain of fire." The words seemed to hang in the air. "What's the most dangerous part of an eruption?" Mom asked. "Lava," Sam said, with just a little too much excitement. "Lava is dangerous," said Mr. Morales, "but around here the bigger dangers are mudslides and rock avalanches. And I worry about the proclastic surge. That's a wave of hot air that explodes out of the volcano. It's truly devastating. That's what happened in the eruption of Mount Pelee." "Never heard of Mount Pelee," Mr. Rowan said. None of them had. "What happened?" Eddie asked. "I don't know if you want to hear about it," Dr. Morales said. "It's a grim story." We do, Sam begged. "Go ahead," Mom said. And so, as the hot chocolates grew cold, Dr. Morales told the story of the deadliest volcanic eruption in the 20th century. Chapter 8. The year was 1902 on the Caribbean island of Martinique, Dr. Morales began. "The island's capital is the city of Saint Pierre, which is right on the Caribbean Sea, and it sits right at the base of Mount Pelée. Pelée was a fairy tale kind of mountain, with bright green slopes covered with trees. Like St. Helens, Jess thought. Few people realized that it was actually a volcano. It had rumbled a few times over the centuries, but it had been silent for more than 50 years. And then, in April of 1902, Pelée woke up All through that month, there were hundreds of very small earthquakes. Like the ones today? Eddie asked. Dr. Morales nodded. There was also the strong smell of sulfur gas seeping from deep inside the earth. That gas builds up as a volcano is becoming more active, and it can leak out of the earth. It has a horrific smell like rotten eggs. In Pile, the stench became so strong that people fainted in the streets. Horses collapsed. But few had any idea that the quakes and the sulfur were warming signs that Pile was going to erupt. The science of volcanoes was unknown back then. People simply didn't understand that they were in danger. That changed in early May, when a small eruption sent ash and glowing rocks into the air. A few days later, part of the volcano broke away, and a river of boiling mud and ash roared down the mountain at 80 miles an hour. "That's faster than my truck," Mr. Rowan said. "Some mudslides can travel even faster. That one killed more than 150 people," Dr. Morales said. He looked at Jess and the twins. "The story gets more grisly. Maybe I should stop here." "No!" Sam shouted. For him, this was even better than a Mariners game. Dr. Morales looked at Mom, who nodded. "Okay," he said, "because next come the snakes." "Snakes?" Mom said. The earthquakes disturbed thousands of snakes that had been living on the mountain. They came slithering down into St. Pierre. Some of them were venomous, 6-foot-long pit vipers. Hundreds of people died from bites. "Goodness, I'm going to have nightmares about this," Mom said. "Sorry," Dr. Morales said. "I'm getting carried away. I should stop." But no way would Sam let him. "It's all right," Mom said. "You might as well tell us how this ends." "I think we can take it," said Mr. Rowan. So at this point, people were terrified, as you can imagine, Dr. Morales continued. Many people left by ship. But most couldn't afford to flee or had no place to go. And the leaders of St. Pierre kept telling people the worst was over. "I'm guessing they were wrong," Mom said with a cringe. "Very wrong," Dr. Morales said. "The real disaster happened on May 8th. A cloud of sulfur blanketed the city. First there was a massive explosion. Pumice and mud rained down, and then a wave of searing hot gas and ash exploded out of the mountain and into St. Pierre." Dr. Morales took a breath. Within seconds, 30,000 people were dead. Jess gasped, and the boy's chin practically hit the table. 30,000 people, Mom said slowly. "How is that even possible?" "That was the proclastic surge. Imagine the wind in a hurricane, but with air that's scalding hot. Then add toxic gas and ground up rock and ash. The heat is so extreme that it burns everything in its path. People died instantly, without even knowing what happened to them." Nobody spoke for a moment, and even Sam looked queasy. The only sound was the gurgle of the soda fountain. "And you're saying that the same thing could happen here?" Mom asked. Dr. Morales nodded. "It could, but luckily there aren't 30,000 people living right at the base of Saint Helens." That was true. The mountain was surrounded by forest, with just a few towns dotting the valley. A chill came over Jess, even though she was warm and snug sitting between the twins. For her entire life, St. Helens had been the beautiful mountain rising into the sky. She'd grown up hiking its winding trails, diving into its cold lakes, and fishing for trout in its streams. Just looking at St. Helens out her window made her feel calm, as if it were watching over her somehow. Okay, maybe somewhere in the back of her mind she'd known that St. Helens was a volcano. Everyone around here knew that, but Jess never imagined that it was a real volcano, a killer that could explode. "When do you think this eruption is going to happen?" Mom asked. Dr. Morales shook his head. "It's hard for me to say, but I do believe it's going to erupt violently, and I think it's going to happen soon." All right, guys. Thanks. I'll be back on tomorrow.